Japanese government instead increased spending. So even though tax revenue fell, government increased spending, and that kept the Japanese economy from a total collapse. The difference between the two is the budget deficit. And as all of you are aware, budget deficit in Japan is pretty large. But we are so glad that this was done. Because if the government didn't do it, Japan would have probably disappeared from the economic map of the world, with so many people paying down debt, as you saw earlier. Asset prices down 87% from the peak. Maybe the Japanese economy will be the size of Taiwan by then. But from the very beginning, government increased spending, and that kept the Japanese economy going. United States will have to do exactly the same thing. If United States come up with a program of increasing spending and take that $100, put that back into the income stream, then there's no reason for US GDP to fall. And once people realize that GDP can be kept, even with people returning the key to the bank, house prices falling, as long as GDP can be kept, people have income. And as long as people have jobs and income, they can repair their balance sheets. Maybe slowly, but surely. And as long as they are in this process, people can still look forward to eventual recovery. If the whole thing is collapsing, there's no possibility of recovery, and then we will fall into the 1930s-like scenario. And so I very much like to see, in addition to capital injection, a program of medium-term program of fiscal spending by the government to take the $100, put that back into the income stream. Next year, same thing happens, take the $100, put that back into the income stream. As long as they do that, we will move toward the solution, if only slowly. Before we get here, there are two other possibilities that people think about. How about bringing the interest rates down? And I'm sure you have heard this all the time. Bernanke, bring the interest rates down. Maybe he will bring the interest rate down next week. Who knows? Or not next week, a week after. Well, you saw earlier, Bank of Japan brought interest rates down from over 8% to 0. Absolutely nothing happened. Land prices kept on falling. Economy kept on weakening. No one increased their borrowing. Same thing will happen in the United States. When people have balance sheet problems, when your balance sheet is underwater, you have this much debt, only this much assets. No one will lend you money, and these people don't want to borrow money either. If you borrow money, it just gets worse. So this is a very different world. I call this world balance sheet recession because everybody's looking at balance sheets. No one's trying to make money. Everybody's trying to survive. But when everybody does it all at the same time, we get into this very complicated situation where the situation gets worse and worse and worse. In this type of recession, I'm afraid monetary policy is largely useless. We learned that in Japan, 8% to 0, nothing. Bernanke brought interest rate down from 5.25% to 2% in less than 7 months. That was the fastest interest rate reduction in US history. But nothing happened. House prices kept on falling, as you saw earlier. Unemployment kept on increasing. Absolutely nothing happened. So my advice to you is that don't get too excited with Mr. Bernanke bringing interest rates down. It might help the stock market for one day. But next day, people say, hey, there's no reason for this to work. And then going down again. Or, if you want to get out of the stock, wait till Bernanke lower interest rates and the market goes up. Then that's the time to dump your stocks so that you can get a little bit higher for your money. So interest rate reductions in this kind of recession is irrelevant. And if the market reacts, that's the chance for you to sell, not to buy. How about tax cut? Because I said there are three, right? Public spending, tax cut, and interest rate cuts. Now, tax cut was actually implemented in the United States in February. And a lot of Americans, or those of you who pay US taxes in this room, you got a little check from the Internal Revenue Service that, hey, you get your tax money back. That was better than nothing. But in this kind of situation, it's very, very expensive way to keep the economy going. The reason is, if your balance sheet's underwater, you have this much debt, only this much assets, and the government give you a tax cut, chances are very high that you use this tax cut to pay down debt. And in the United States, it is assumed that of the $150 billion of tax cut, only about $50 billion, 1/3, was able to appear as demand to keep the economy going. The remaining $100 was either saved or used to pay down debt. So tax cut, maybe you see a big numbers. Another proposal may come up with another $200 billion tax cut. And say, wow, tax cut, great. Well, don't get too excited, because only a small portion of that tax cut will be helpful. So if people get too excited about the tax cut, maybe it's a chance to sell, not a chance to buy. How about China? China has the same problem also. As many of you are aware, the housing bubble burst before Olympics started. And stock market has been down since last year. So China is going to face the same balance sheet recession like this one. Now, China's problems are immense. But I'm also highly encouraged by the flexibility of the leadership in Beijing. They are studying the Japanese example very, very carefully. In fact, compared to Europeans or Americans, I see Chinese far more attuned to this example of Japan, for obvious reasons. China is right here now. And if the GDP goes down like this, instead of going this way, the Japanese way, if the GDP comes down like that, they know very well that the Chinese Communist Party is finished. Now, some people in this room might find that very happy, but when the